It was supposed to be a celebration. That's what Claire kept saying. It's Ethan's big moment, she told me the night before. Try to enjoy yourself. But the way she said it felt more like a warning than an invitation. Like she already knew what I'd be walking into. The engagement dinner was held at Claire's sister's house. A beige two-story box in a St. Louis suburb where every driveway had the same SUV and every lawn looked vacuumed. They'd set up folding chairs in the dining room to extend the long farmhouse table, all white wood and mason jars and Pinterest charm. A handmade banner stretched over the archway. She said yes, in gold script. I brought a bottle of wine no one opened. Wore a button-down Claire hadn't complimented. I stood in the kitchen longer than I should have, making small talk with her brother-in-law, trying to delay whatever this night was about to become. He kept checking his watch like my presence was an inconvenience. When I finally made my way to the dining room, most of the chairs were already claimed. Claire sat beside her son Luke, laughing at something I hadn't heard. Ethan stood at the far end, his fiancée by his side, whispering in his ear like she was narrating a private joke. I moved to take the empty seat near Claire, the one next to Luke, and that's when it happened. They didn't say a word, just looked at each other, subtle and swift. Then their feet moved. Ethan's left foot, Luke's right, nudging the legs of my chair sideways, not enough to knock it over, just enough to make me feel off-center. Misaligned, like I had stepped into a space where I didn't belong. I looked at them. Luke smiled. Ethan didn't. Then the words came, smooth and quiet, spoken like fact. Only real family sits at this table. I didn't move. Not right away. I let the sentence hang in the air. Let it echo. I waited for someone, anyone, to laugh and say it was a joke, that they were just being idiots playing some dumb prank. But no one did. Claire kept her gaze fixed on her wineglass, swirled it once, smiled faintly, not at me. No protest, no outrage, no discomfort, just silence smooth as velvet. That was the worst part. The way it didn't feel accidental. The way her silence fit. I stood behind my chair for a moment longer than necessary, then slowly pulled it back into position. Not the way they had shoved it, but centered again. Aligned with the table like I was daring them to say it twice. But I sat without a word. Smiled like a corpse. Picked up a fork I wouldn't use. You learn a lot in moments like that. The real language of a family isn't what they say, it's what they allow. It's who they let be erased and how easily. The conversation flowed around me, warm and fast, as if I weren't there. Someone made a toast. I didn't raise my glass. Someone passed the potatoes. They skipped me. Luke laughed loudly at something Ethan said. A sound sharp enough to slice meat. And Claire touched his arm in that affectionate way I hadn't felt from her in months. The woman beside me, Ethan's fiancée, turned once, looked me over like I was furniture, then turned away. For years I had tried to earn a seat at that table. Not literally, symbolically. Every holiday, every birthday, every emergency phone call in the middle of the night, when Luke's car broke down or Ethan needed help filling out loan applications. I was the one they called when things fell apart. But tonight proved what they'd never said out loud. I was temporary. A footnote. A cautionary tale told in silence. I wasn't their father. I knew that. But I had acted like one. Paid like one. Sacrificed like one. And for years I convinced myself that the reward for all of it would be belonging. Not affection. Not gratitude. Just a simple place. A seat. Undisturbed. Instead, I was pushed out, nudged, like a stray chair in the wrong room. I kept my face neutral through dinner, biting down on every impulse. The humiliation didn't come in waves. It arrived all at once, like a curtain pulled back on a play you hadn't realized was already in progress. And everyone had learned their lines but you. Claire laughed when Ethan brought up his biological father, Mark. A man who hadn't been to a single holiday in years, who once showed up drunk to Luke's graduation, who had called me the replacement to my face and never apologized. But there was no bitterness in her voice when she spoke of him now. Just nostalgia, and the kind of fondness you can only afford when you've handed off responsibility to someone else. They never mentioned me. Not once. When dessert came, Someone handed me a plate like an afterthought. I didn't eat it. I watched Ethan cut into his cake, his fiancée feeding him the first bite like they were already in wedding photos. I watched Luke wipe frosting off his nose and smear it onto his mother's arm while she shrieked with laughter. The camera came out. Flash. Smile. Family. I wasn't in a single frame. Later, as the guests filtered toward the front door and coats were gathered, Claire turned to me and said, "You were quiet tonight." I shrugged. "Not much to say." She smiled vaguely. "Ethan said the speech you gave at his high school graduation was formal." I looked at her. "He said that tonight?" She nodded. "Yeah, just an observation." I nodded back. Nothing more to say. On the drive home, the silence between us felt like a wall. Not a cold war. Not tension. Just absence. Like she had already decided which version of the night was true, and none of my feelings had made the edit. I watched her from the corner of my eye as she texted on her phone, thumb moving slowly, smile flickering. Probably to Ethan, or her sister, or someone who lived in that world I'd just been shown the door to. We pulled into our driveway, lights off, house dark. She went inside without waiting for me, left the car door open, left me there, staring at the dashboard like it might tell me who I had become. That night, I lay in bed awake while she scrolled beside me. Her body turned away, her warmth reserved, the kind of posture that tells you you're already being mourned, just quietly. And I knew, even before sleep claimed her, I wasn't part of the future she imagined. I was just a chapter, one they were already editing out. But I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just watched the map redraw itself, and realized I was no longer on it. I didn't say a word in the car the next morning. Claire had left early, a Pilates class or brunch, some ritual escape she'd stopped explaining to me months ago. I sat at the kitchen table alone. The same table where I'd helped Ethan study for finals, where Luke once opened his acceptance letter and dropped it into my lap like I was supposed to celebrate it more than he did. Now there was just coffee, bitter, cooling in my hand, and the memory of that chair scraping across the floor, nudged sideways by a boy I'd called son more times than I could count. I didn't shake with rage. I didn't scream. No breaking plates, no slamming doors. It was quiet the way most real endings are. The noise comes later when people realize what they've lost. But in that moment all I felt was clarity. Like a fog had lifted. For years I had given. Tuition assistance. Rent money. Groceries that magically restocked. Phone plans they never saw the bills for. Car insurance payments deducted automatically from my account. Their safety nets sewn tight and invisible. All mine. And they never once asked where it came from. They assumed it like gravity, like breath. I had been convenient. Not a father. Not a man with a seat at the table. Just a function. So I began to erase myself. That morning, before the sun finished rising over the trees in our backyard, I opened my laptop and logged into the wedding website where Claire had registered us. Venue booked 6 months in advance. My name on the deposit. I canceled it. The catering invoice held on my card. Cancelled. Florist, photographer, officiant, all cancelled. Not in anger, in precision. There's a difference. Each email came with a note. Plans have changed. Thank you for your understanding. I wrote them like obituaries. By 10 a.m. The church secretary called Claire's phone twice. She didn't pick up. She never checks voicemail. I didn't offer to explain. Then I opened the next browser tab. Ethan's insurance provider. Policy under my name. I scrolled down to the section labeled Drivers. Removed. Ethan Caldwell. Age 24. No longer a dependent. Next, Luke. Removed. I clicked Confirm without hesitation. The screen refreshed. The numbers adjusted. The weight began to shift off my shoulders. They would find out the hard way. A denied claim. Call they didn't expect. And maybe then they'd realize that the man they dismissed had held their futures in the palm of his hand. I moved down the list. Ethan's car? Leased under my name. I scheduled the cancellation. Return date? End of the month. He'd have to bring it in himself. Or let them come get it. Didn't matter. Their student health plans? I'd added them as a courtesy. Unchecked the boxes. Saved changes. Their gym memberships. The ones they had forgotten to pay for each month? I stopped auto-renewal. Luke's Spotify Premium was on my family plan. Gone. I removed them the way a surgeon cuts out infection. One precise motion at a time. It wasn't vengeance. I didn't feel powerful or vindicated. I felt hollow, but clean, like disinfecting a wound, like pouring something bitter over the rot that had lived too long beneath the surface. By noon, I sat in the living room, the silence pressing against my chest. No messages, no alarms yet. They didn't know. Not yet. Claire came home around 2, shopping bags in hand. A soft smile on her lips that vanished when she saw me. You're home early. I had things to do. She set the bags down. Everything okay? I looked at her for a long time. Her hair pulled back. Neck flushed from the sun. Eyes bright. So detached from the world I'd just unraveled. I didn't answer. Just nodded. She didn't press. That night we had dinner in silence. I watched her across the table, the same way I had watched her sons days earlier. Not as family, but as something distant. Something studied. She twirled pasta onto her fork, talked about Ethan's fiancée, about the wedding colors. Still unaware. I said nothing. Let her build dreams on scaffolding I had already torn down. After she went to bed, I stayed awake. I opened another account. Private one. Moved funds. Cleared shared passwords. Bit by bit, I separated my life from theirs. I wasn't leaving. I was unhooking. Disentangling. The next morning, the messages began. First from Luke. A voicemail. Hey, my car's acting weird. The app says the coverage lapsed. Can you check on that? Then Ethan. A text. Why isn't my insurance showing up? They're saying it was terminated. What the hell, man? I stared at the screen, then turned the phone face down. By the end of the day, the panic was blooming. A call from Claire. While I was still at work. Ethan's really confused. Did something happen with the insurance? I paused. Yes. A long silence. Okay. So, I canceled it. More silence. Then, why would you? They said I wasn't real family. I'm acting accordingly. She exhaled, sharp. Come on. They were joking. They weren't. Her voice tightened. You're overreacting. I didn't respond, because I wasn't reacting. I was correcting a mistake. That night, Ethan showed up at the house. No warning. Just the sound of a car door slamming and footsteps on the porch. I opened the door to find him standing there, all righteous indignation and forced calm. You canceled everything? Seriously? I didn't move. Yes. Why? You said I'm not real family. He laughed bitterly. That was nothing. Just messing around. You took that seriously? I didn't blink. I did. And so should you. He ran a hand through his hair. Exasperated. You're being a child. No, I said. I was a fool. For years. Not anymore. He looked past me into the house. Is Mom home? I didn't move. She doesn't control my accounts. This was mine. He stared at me like he didn't recognize who I was. Like I had betrayed him. You can't just do this. I already did. You think you're teaching me a lesson? I shook my head. I'm setting a boundary. One you've drawn in my face for years. He stood there, fists clenched, trying to will me back into the shape he wanted. But I stayed still. You're not my father, he said again, quieter this time. A whisper, like maybe now he didn't believe it so much. I nodded. I agree. Then I shut the door. And this time I didn't flinch. I thought the silence would last longer. But by morning they were already scrambling. The group thread Claire had once insisted we use. To stay connected, she said. To feel like a family. Lit up with alerts. Ethan posted a **T of a declined insurance payment. Luke replied with a string of question marks. Claire didn't say anything, not at first. I watched it all without typing a single word. By noon, The texts started coming in separately. Luke, what's going on? I can't log into the bank app. The joint account says I don't have access anymore? Ethan, are you kidding me right now? I have an appointment today. They won't take me without insurance. Then Claire, Michael, did you do something with the account? The boys are freaking out. The boys. Always the boys. Even now. I didn't reply. Instead, I logged into the bank one last time. The shared account Claire had begged me to open, just for a safety cushion. They never touched it for emergencies. It became their slush fund. Gas, gifts, Luke's weekend trips, Ethan's impulse tech buys. I watched the numbers drain over the years, Claire always saying, "It's just this once," or "I'll move something over soon," but she never did. Closed it, transferred the remaining balance, what little was left, into my own private account, deleted the external links, reset the passwords. Then I sat back and waited. The first call came around 4 p.m. Claire. I let it ring. Then again. The third time I answered. I needed to hear her voice. I needed to know whether it trembled. Didn't. Michael, what are you doing? Her tone was sharp, polished. The voice of a woman who still thought she held authority over me. I'm ending what should have never started, I said. What does that mean? It means I've stopped pretending. A beat of silence. Then, you're punishing them for being kids. No, I said. I'm punishing myself for being a fool. And I'm done. You can't just cut them off. They rely on you. Not anymore. She took a breath, and I could hear her pacing. I imagined her in the kitchen, barefoot, phone pressed to her cheek, eyes darting around like the walls might offer answers. This isn't who you are, she said finally softer. You've always been generous. I was convenient, I corrected. And now I'm not. She didn't reply. That night, I came home to find Luke in the driveway, arms crossed, his phone in one hand, a look of thinly veiled outrage on his face. You froze my card, he said. No hello, no question, just accusation. I unlocked the door. Didn't answer. He followed me inside. I had a date tonight, he said. Reservations. She's gonna think I bailed on her. I set my keys on the counter. You'll live. He stepped closer, trying to tower, but there was nothing behind his height. Just the brittle panic of someone who'd never had to solve a problem alone. I don't get it, he said. Just tell me what I did. You told me I wasn't your family. That was Ethan. And you didn't say a word. You just laughed. He blinked. Silence, I said, is a kind of truth. Claire came in from the garage, shopping bags in hand. Her eyes flicked between us. Can we not do this tonight? She said. Please. I walked past them, went upstairs, locked the office door behind me. That was the last night we all shared the house without screaming. The next morning, Ethan showed up. His face was flushed, eyes wild. They're threatening to cancel my enrollment, he said before I could speak. They said if the payment doesn't come through by Friday, I'm dropped from the semester. I stood at the bottom of the stairs. No anger, no sympathy. And, he blinked. You can't be serious. You're not a child, I said. Figure it out. He looked to Claire, who hovered behind me, useless. Are you just gonna let him do this? She hesitated. Michael, maybe we can just. No, I said. We're not solving a thing. We're reaping. Ethan stepped forward. I've worked my ass off. No, I interrupted. You've coasted. You've lived off a man you never respected, then erased him with one sentence. Now you're discovering what that sentence cost. He laughed, desperate. You're not even my dad. And that's exactly why I'm done. Claire didn't speak. The next few days were a spiral. Phone calls, emails, texts full of apologies that meant nothing. Half-hearted explanations. Luke claimed he never meant it like that. Ethan insisted it was a misunderstanding. Claire tried to triangulate, played diplomat between ghosts. I stayed unmoved. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I wasn't cruel. I was absent. The one thing they had taken for granted was now the one thing they couldn't reach. Then came the landlord. Ethan's off-campus apartment. Claire came to me with the notice. "They're threatening eviction," she said, holding the letter like it burned. "I believe it," I replied. She sat down across from me, her face hollow. "He'll have nowhere to go. Maybe Mark can take him in." "Don't do that. He's their father, right? The real one." She looked down at the letter. "He hasn't answered their calls." "Not my problem," I said. Her voice cracked. "Please, just help until the semester ends." I stared at her. This woman I had built a life with, who had let her sons shove me aside like old furniture, who had smiled when they drew lines through my name and called it a joke. "Help?" I asked. "Help who?" She didn't answer. Later that night, I found her crying in the bathroom. The door half open, the light off. I didn't say anything, just stood in the hall, listening to the sound of someone finally realizing what they'd allowed to happen. The next morning, I wrote a short message to Mark. Just one line. "This is entirely your responsibility now." No greeting, no signature, just truth sent like a bill. He didn't reply, but that silence said enough. The fallout came quickly after that. Ethan was suspended. Luke's phone was shut off. The gym called to confirm his membership had lapsed. Claire asked if we could talk. I said no. We slept in the same bed, back to back, like corpses. She reached for me once. I didn't move. She never tried again. Days bled into each other. Meals eaten in silence. Door slams. Passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. Luke left a message on my phone that ended in tears. Ethan sent an email listing all the things he'd miss if he got expelled. I read it twice, then deleted it. By the end of the week, I felt something I hadn't known in years. Not peace, not closure, but stillness. The kind that comes after demolition, when the dust settles and you finally see what stood on nothing. It didn't end with a scream. No slammed doors, no middle-of-the-night escape. Just a slow retreat. Ethan stopped calling first. I noticed it one morning, the quiet that had taken root in my phone. No angry voicemails, no explanations, laced with condescension. He'd moved from outrage to silence. Not peace, just absence. Luke followed. For a while he hovered, texting Claire, leaving notes on the fridge like some half-hearted ghost. "I'm staying at Sean's. I need stuff for class. Can someone pick up my charger?" He never said "Dad." Never said "thank you." Eventually he stopped saying anything. Claire was the last to shift. Not with words, those had dried up weeks ago, but with posture. She moved differently now. Walked softly around the house like it belonged to someone else. Her eyes avoided mine in the hallways, like even a glance would confirm what she already knew. That the center had cracked, and I wasn't rebuilding it. We passed each other in silence for days. Weeks. She slept on her side, back to me, always just far enough to feel like a message. I stopped counting how many nights passed like that. Then one evening, as the light faded across the living room, that dim, forgiving kind of gold that makes even pain look cinematic, she sat beside me on the couch and finally spoke. "I didn't know what to say," she whispered. I didn't turn to her. "You didn't say anything." She nodded. "That's what I mean." We sat like that a long time. "They're your sons," I said eventually. "You could have drawn a line, told them what I was, what I gave, but you let them write the story." Claire pulled her knees up. Her voice, when it came, was brittle. "I was scared that they'd hate me if I took your side." I looked at her then, not with anger, but with a sadness that had stopped trying to be forgiven. "They hated me because you didn't." She winced. I waited for more, for the apology, for the reckoning, but it didn't come. Just silence. A silence filled with all the things she wasn't brave enough to admit. So I stood up, went upstairs, closed the bedroom door behind me, and understood, finally, that I was alone, even before I ever pulled away. The days stretched. I stopped asking where she was going. She stopped pretending to explain. The house became a waiting room. Shared space, separate lives. The walls didn't echo anymore. Even grief has a half-life. Then, one Friday morning, I came downstairs and saw the suitcases, lined up by the front door. Not mine. She stood by the kitchen island, phone in hand, purse slung over her shoulder. She looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time. They asked me to come stay for a while, she said. I didn't ask who they were. She looked around the house like it belonged to someone she used to know. I don't know how to fix this, she said. I nodded. She waited. For what? I don't know. Permission? Regret? A final plea? I didn't give it. So she opened the door, wheeled her life outside, and left. I didn't watch her drive away. Didn't follow her taillights into the horizon like some broken husband begging for meaning. I just stood in the living room, surrounded by the ruins of a family I had built from nothing, and realized no one was coming back to thank me. It had taken years, a decade and more, to become the scaffolding for 3 people who never once looked up and asked who was holding them up. And when I finally stepped aside, they called it collapse, called it cruelty, called it betrayal. But it wasn't betrayal. It was truth. It was gravity asserting itself after too many years of defiance. They thought love was unconditional, that sacrifice came with no receipt, that a man who stayed would always keep paying no matter the cost. They were wrong. A week passed, maybe more. I fixed the garage door, the one Luke kept promising to get to. I cleaned the gutters, repaired the kitchen drawer Ethan had broken last Christmas and never mentioned again. Little things, quiet things, proof that I was still here, still capable, still alive. One night I sat at the dining table alone, same chair I'd always used, and placed a single plate down in front of me. No centerpiece, no laughter, just me, the sound of my own chewing, and the echo of 1,000 meals I had paid for but never really been part of. And you know what? Felt honest. No pretending. No performance. No hoping for a thank you that would never come. Just silence. Clean. Earned. Later, I found one last photo stuck to the fridge with a magnet. Ethan, Luke, and Claire. Arms around each other. Fake smiles. A day I couldn't place. I took it down. Looked at it for a long time. Then I opened the trash and dropped it in. That was the funeral. No flowers. No speeches. Just the final burial of a lie. Because the truth is, I was never part of that picture. Not really. I was the one who paid for the frame. They still reach out now and then. Messages dressed as reconciliation. Ethan asked if we could talk sometime. Like time itself could unmake what had been said. Luke sent a text on Father's Day. 3 words. Hope you're good. Claire emailed a photo of the dog. No subject line, no message. I don't reply. Not to punish. Not to withhold. But because some things don't get fixed. Some betrayals aren't a single moment. They're a pattern. A system. A shared delusion that one person's sacrifice can hold up an entire fantasy. That he'll never notice he's the only one bleeding. I noticed. Too late, maybe. But I noticed. And now? Now I live like a man who's seen the inside of his own erasure. I wake when I want. I cook for one. I pour a drink at night and sit with the silence like it's a guest who tells no lies. It doesn't praise me, but it doesn't insult me either. And sometimes that's enough. There's no happy ending here. No reunion. No surprise turn. Just the slow, necessary freedom that comes when you stop begging to be included in a family that never wanted you whole. So let me ask you, the stranger, the witness, the one who didn't see the cracks but sees the wreckage now. Was I wrong? Was I cruel to stop carrying people who refused to even admit I held them? Would you have stayed? Would you have swallowed it year after year, just to be told you were lucky to be tolerated? Or would you have done what I did? Stepped back, watched them fall, and finally let the silence be yours?